Hi, I'm Caio from Atelier RPG, and in this video I like to focus on two things that I believe are not very well explored. I want to discuss ways to build your own color palette and how to maintain cohesion in group painting. These are Skaith's Wild Hunt from Warhammer Underworlds, and I don't like their original color palette. So I developed my own with the help of one of these, a color wheel. To put it simply, the colors on opposing sides are complementary colors. That means they generate a lot of contrast with each other. The neighboring colors are called analogous, and they can accompany the original color without causing much contrast. In the video, you'll be able to see me use complementary and analogous colors to build a visual identity for the group, and how to associate colors in harmony to keep group cohesion. So let's watch the video. In this paint job, I only really use black primer. Zenithal highlighting is not always necessary when you got very defined details on your models. I chose to keep the orange hair from the original color palette. For contrast, I use the color wheel and get a turquoise on the other side, and that's going to be the main color for the armor. For their skin, I pick an analogous, violet, and to contrast it, I pick green, and that's going to be used on the weapons. Even though I chose violet as the main skin color, you can see right now that the paint I'm using is purple. This will not be the final skin tone, just a tone to make the shadows of the skin tone. We will get to a violet tone by layering other colors over the purple, the bottles of which you could see by the side of the purple on the color wheel step. The red will be the darkest tone for the orange hair, like purple is the darkest tone for the violet skin. I apply 2 thin layers on all models. It's a long process since red is a particularly hard color to get a solid layer, especially with thin paints. Also, now is a good time to comment on why I chose orange and violet. Both are variations on red, a primary color, so both retain cohesion by being hot colors, and both go on the body, so the model's bodies are all on hot colors. That will be contrasted by the cold colors that will be on the armor and the weapons. Here you can see I mixed the reddish brown with pure red, and this will be the last hot color for their body, since most of them have fur on their lower bodies. The brown ended up being too light for my taste, so I mixed a darker brown with deep red, and the mix felt a lot more like what I wanted for the base layer. Once more, 2 thin layers so we don't lose detail. Now for the lion. Lion? Tiny lion, I guess. I chose to give it a more neutral fur, but that neutral color starts with a bright pink. Now with violet, I layer the mid-tone of the skin. It will cover all of the highest points of the skin and then some, pushing the purple into the recesses of the muscles. If the placement of the mid-tones is not immediately obvious to you, that's because it really isn't obvious. I have studied art for many years and that has given me a basis for it. But a very good way to learn the ropes is to use a zenithal highlight and take a picture of it. Use the lights on it to direct yourself. If you don't know what a zenithal highlight is, it's just an application of white paint over black primer from a fixed point of height, like a light source, either by airbrush or by spray can. With the leftovers from the reddish brown that first covered their lower bodies, I make a pass with a broad highlight. I use hatching with my brush strokes so it helps to texture the fur. If you don't know what hatching is, it's just thin parallel lines that go along each other. Speaking of fur, with pure white I start hatching on the tiny lion. White with pink on the base layer will make his fur look a lot less intense. This bright orange goes all over their hair and their tails, and it's going to be the mid-tone for all of those parts. That means it will be the most present tone. With the same bright pink that I used on the layer for the tiny lion, I'll now make the skin highlights. These are the highest points of the skin that would be exposed to the light, so they would be brighter. Impatient as I am, I mixed the highlight for the fur at the same time as the pink, so I rushed ahead and hatched highlights on the centaur. But his skin was done the same way as all the others. Right after that, I applied the highlight tone to all others, a light brown mixed with the same orange that was used on their hair. all of them receive hatching, like the centaur. Now it's time for the hair highlights, and for that I mixed these two yellows to get the tone that I wanted. This highlight will be applied sparingly, just to push the light on the orange, not to supersede it. And if you got blotches anywhere, just come back with the base color, red in this case. Finally, the turquoise. But first, it gets mixed with deep blue for the base layer. I apply it all over the armor, leather and clothes. Now for the actual pure turquoise. I highlight all the points that light would catch on the armor texture. And I think it's really at this point that we can actually appreciate how much hot and cold colors make each other pop out. I ended up deciding last minute that the centaur's mask should also be turquoise, and right after that I mix some white to the turquoise and start the final armor and clothing highlights. Honestly, I really like metallic paints, so of course, all of the weapons and other parts of the armor get a metallic layer. First, a very dark metallic silver as a base layer. And now, a light silver on all the edges. This helps simulate points that will catch more light, even with reflexive paint, like metallics. Now for a little trick I myself learned from YouTube. Inks. These are imports in Brazil, but they're very much worth it. They tint the original tone without covering the work you've done underneath. Very easy and leaves a very nice finish afterwards. Now this is my new favorite thing. Gold pigment. I only know this one from this one brand, but you mix it into acrylic medium and it becomes the most beautiful gold paint I've ever seen. I painted lots of details and a satyr's battle horn with it. With ochre, I paint the centaur's antlers, the blades that he and the tiny lion have on their tails, and the archer's bow. I very lightly dry brush a light silver over the green metallics. That helps the weapons and armor look brighter. I use a tan wash to quickly detail the runes on the hunting horn. I applied turquoise to their naval jewels, and with turquoise mixed with white, I highlight them. With a very tiny speck of yellow on my smallest brush and holding my breath, I dot on their pupils. With the same bright orange I used on their hair, I paint their eyebrows. I then come back touching up various details. Little jewels, small things. Last minute decision, which is fairly common to me, I decided to try the gold on their hooves. And golden they stayed. I then dot some ochre on the tiny lion's paws. With an ivory tone, I made the highlights on the tail blades and the color transition on the centaur's antlers and the archer's bow. With forest green, I painted over all of the bases, except the water parts that received turquoise. After that, I applied the dark green wash over all of the green, and since the video was already too long, I thought of stopping there. But really I couldn't, it was missing too many details, so I convinced myself I'd only paint the flowers orange and be done. But I ended up painting the branches brown, and the fruit red, and highlighting the flowers, and tone shifting some plants, and texturing the grass. In the end, it made a lot of difference, but with the amount of time I had already invested into the characters, yes, painting the bases took too long. And finally, to finish the paint job, The Warband symbol on the centaur shield gets painted gold. And here's the final result. So I hope it was simple enough to understand my process on creating a palette and harmonizing it. Hopefully, inspires you to create your own for your RPGs and wargames. Subscribe for more videos and please leave a like if you liked. And friends, good games!